All right, so it's been like a day and a half, 2 days since I got the barrels. Is this right? Yeah, I think so. Barrels and buckets out. And the sap has finally started to flow. Actually, I was out here last night checking on the stuff, and I saw the maples were just starting to run at that point. And if you look at the lines here, you can see the bubbles, I think, moving through the lines. So that means there's sap pushing that down through there, and it's draining into our barrel. I checked it, and this barrel here barely had anything in it. There might have been half a gallon or something in it last night. I have not checked it yet this morning. Haven't tried to shake it or anything like that to see how much is in there. So we're gonna pop this lid off and see what we got. The barrel over in the turkey field, when I checked it last night, that one already had probably 5 gallons or so in it. So I'm expecting that one to be a little bit more full than this one. But I've got a extra barrel here in the bucket of the skid steer. So if I don't fall over here, one way or another, we're going to, if they need it, we're gonna either swap barrels or empty them out, or I don't know. We're kind of playing it by ear at this point. Okay. Well, there's definitely some in there. It's not super heavy. There might be, I'm gonna say 20 gallons in there, maybe. I don't think, goodness, if I can get this off here. I don't think any more than that. Ugh. There we go. Ooh, probably not even that much. Maybe 10 gallons. I don't know how well you can, if I can get it to focus on the right, there we go. I'd say there's probably no more than 10 gallons of sap in there. So I'm just gonna leave this one for now. I've actually got to head out of here pretty soon. So that one's so low that obviously it's not gonna overflow anytime in the next few hours. So gonna leave that one as is and check it again this afternoon, maybe swap barrel out or something at that point. But we're gonna go ahead and head over to the turkey field, check on that one, see if anything needs to be done with that. All right, we're over here in the turkey field. As I came up around through here, I checked the buckets for the walnuts coming up around, and I'm thinking that they must not have quite as good a flow as maples. Maybe, I'm not sure. I know they're a different wood structure than the maples are. So maybe that has something to do with it, but I would guess between all of the 25 taps going around through here, maybe 5 to 10 gallons of sap, probably closer to the 5 gallon mark than the 10. Just there's not a lot coming out, and maybe they just take a little bit longer to warm up after the cold than the maples. I don't know. We'll see. It's as I've said many times, this is just kind of all an experiment, and we'll see how it works and see what comes of it. But we're right up here near our barrel here, and like I said, this one probably had, I'm gonna say 5 gallons in it last night when I checked it. So I'm expecting that this one's going to have a fair bit more than the one over behind the farmhouse. Oh yeah, look at that. I'd say that's better than halfway full. So that's probably maybe 30, 35 gallons, something like that. So yeah, we're off to a good start with that one. So one thing with these maples over here is that, needless to say, there's a lot more drop between where the trees are and where the barrel is. So we're getting, you can create a sort of a siphon effect with your tubing because that water, or the sap, as it's flowing down through here, it's kind of pulling, gravity is causing that sap to pull on the sap that's up in the trees as it works its way down through here. So it kind of creates a siphon effect. And of course, the more difference in elevation, the more head you have, the more vacuum, or the more suction that creates on the trees. And for here, you've probably got, I'm going to say, 10 to 15 feet of elevation difference between where the barrel is and where the trees are, whereas with the ones behind the farmhouse, you might only have 5. So all else the same, I would expect these to perform better than the ones behind the farmhouse, just based on that. Now, of course, you got other factors about, like, I don't know, how much water they have nearby or something like that could affect how much sap they're producing, and which way they're facing as far as, you know, how the sun hits them to heat them up faster. I mean, there's a bunch of other variables, but based just on how much elevation drop we have, I would expect these to do better, and they definitely are so far. There we go, we're good to go. Empty barrel there, mostly, well, a little over halfway full, maybe up to around in there. Barrel loaded up. Take this back to the mill house. So what we're gonna do now is, first, I got a hydrometer that will measure lower concentrations of sugar in a substance. Last year, all I had was the syrup making one, which reads up at the higher end, but I've got one that reads really, really low this year. So that way I can find out what the sugar concentration in my sap is. And I kind of want to compare it from the ones that are over in the turkey field versus the ones that are over behind the farmhouse, see if there's any difference between the two. Yeah, just, I think it'd be kind of interesting to know where I'm starting at, and if there's any differences from location to location. Then, after we do that, for this year, we're going to be using an RO, or reverse osmosis system, to concentrate the sap down. Given that I'm tapping quite a few more trees than I did last year, I really do not want to be having to boil all of that water off. So if we can get some of it separated out ahead of time, then that's a whole lot less time that I'm going to spend over at the evaporator arch getting rid of water. Now, the way this works is, I'll turn it around this way. Over here, we got a pump, and this is actually a booster pump. We'll see if this is going to work well enough to pull the sap out of the barrel, with the barrel being below. This is really meant more to boost pressure than for like lifting the sap from, or water or whatever from something. So hopefully this will work as is. If not, we can kind of adjust the height of this and the height of the barrel, and we'll get it figured out one way or another. So it comes into here, and then after it goes through here, it goes through a pre-filter, and then this just pulls out any contaminants that might be in the sap. Then from here, we've got a pressure gauge. Then after it goes through that, it starts going through the reverse osmosis filters. Essentially what this was, originally this was used for purifying water, like for your home or whatever. But some really smart person had the idea of, hey, instead of trying to purify water, what if we used it instead for concentrating sap? So normally people would throw away the concentrated minerals and all that sort of stuff, and they would keep the pure water. But we're doing the opposite, where instead we're keeping that concentrated minerals and sugar in this case, and then getting rid of the pure water instead. And as far as maple RO systems, this is really small. Even for like a hobby-sized setup, this is pretty small. I may get another couple filters to add onto here. That'll help improve the efficiency that I'm able to concentrate it down with. But I decided to start pretty small, see how it works, and then we can go from there. But essentially, it runs through these filters, and it separates out between concentrated sap, which it goes through this one, concentrated comes out through here, and then it runs through this one, where it then concentrates it again. And then coming out of this side, this is the pure water that comes out through here, pure water that comes out through this one, and then that's going to go off actually into a different tank. And we're going to keep that water because we can use that then to flush the system to get it cleaned out after we're done running sap through it each time that we're doing this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get this hung up just over here on the wall of the mill house, get that up and out of the way. I need to cut a couple of tubes, one to hook into here. This is where our input's going to be, so this tube will then feed into this tank here. That's going to pull the sap out of there. I need to get another tube coming out of here. That's going to go into an empty tank that's over here. That's going to be the pure water. And then I'm actually going to run the concentrate back into this tank here, so it'll just keep on circulating through, and taking that concentration up and up and up. I'm not entirely sure how high I want to take it to, but since I've only got 2 filters, I know that I can recirculate it for a little while to bring that up before I would need to cut the pump off. Before I forget, let's get a hydrometer reading here and see what our sugar is. I don't know what to expect for what these are going to be, especially. Oh, no wonder it's not going in. I've got it in here upside down. I'd probably make it fill up a little bit better. There we go. We'll see. These are red maples, so they aren't going to be quite as good of a concentration, or quite as good a sugar content as a sugar. So that is reading, looks like right about 2% actually. 2.5%. So that's not too bad. Like I said, I was kind of hoping it would be maybe 1.5 or better, but 2%, that's better yet. All right. Alrighty folks, well as you can tell, we're jumping ahead just a little bit here. And in fact, this isn't even the first boil that I've done on here. Yesterday, I boiled as well. I didn't get around, obviously, to getting you guys out or anything because I was just trying to get everything set up, get the float box sorted out here, and get my real fancy platform and head tank and everything set up, figured out how it was running, get it kind of dialed in a little bit, and I just didn't have time to get the camera out and show you what I was doing. But yesterday I got pretty much all of the maple sap and sap concentrate boiled off. It's none of it is finished syrup. It's down to, I don't know, I didn't even check it, maybe 40% sugar, something around in there, I'd guess, because for the pan this size, even when you get it down to say 1 inch of depth on here, that's still like 5 gallons of liquid. So I got it concentrated down to that much, and this morning we're working on getting the walnut sap boiled down, concentrated as far down as I can get it. Now it's been warm for a good few days now, so it's starting to slow down. I think in another maybe 2 days we're supposed to get back below freezing again, which should get the sap running a little bit. But I'm just trying to kind of get everything concentrated, and maybe not quite to finished syrup, but at least down low enough that I can put it maybe in buckets and get it in the fridge to store it until I'm ready to boil again. One thing that I did learn from yesterday's boil was with the fan, I did make an adjustment on that little baffle piece in there, and I went too far to the other extreme, and the front of the stove was getting very, very hot because that's where it was bringing that air right up in front of the door, so that's where it was burning the hottest, and it was just way too hot on the front of the stove here. So before I started today, I kind of bent that back down a little bit, and I think where it's at now is probably pretty good. I don't think I'm going to try adjusting that anymore. But as you can probably see, we've got a decent boil going there. I haven't checked it today with this adjusted baffle angle, but yesterday I think I was doing around 8 gallons an hour, which isn't as good as I was hoping. But I also, like I said, I don't think I had it burning quite as efficiently as it could have with that being tilted too far up and getting the air too far towards the front. I didn't have a whole lot of sap of this walnut to go, so I haven't really gotten a good idea of what I'm doing today. Probably about the same because I'm not pushing it too hard. But even so, compared to last year when I was doing 1 to maybe 2 an hour, this is just so much faster. It is so much faster. Alrighty, so far things have been going pretty well. But that's not to say that there haven't been a couple of little hiccups along the way. The first of which was that the first sap that came in, maybe 80 to 100 gallons, I ended up not being able to use. And the reason for that was that it kind of got a bit of a wonky flavor to it. And that was due to the fact that the barrels that I used, they had previously held pickles. And when I got the barrels, the first thing I did was I cleaned them out, got them all ready to go, gave them the sniff test, and they seemed perfectly fine. The only problem was that it was about freezing out when I did that, and I think the cold kind of dampened down some of that smell. And then when things warmed back up and the sap started running, the smell came back out, and it sort of gave the sap a not so great smell and a little bit of flavor too. So the way that I dealt with that was I got they're essentially liners that I could put in the barrels. Think like a really heavy duty trash bag, like really heavy duty, and that's what I've been using, and it's worked great. It protects the sap from any sort of weird smells or flavors, and that's been working fine with that. And then there might have been another little mishap where I was moving a full barrel of sap around, and I hit a bump weird, and it might have kind of tipped off the front of the bucket of the skid steer. Interesting fact though, when a barrel hits the ground, it will launch the lid about 30 to 40 feet out. It just kind of goes boom, and it'll really go right out there. So I lost another probably 50 or 60 gallons of sap through that little incident as well. In other words, I've lost more sap this year than what I collected in the entire year last year. I think last year I had about 120, 130 gallons of sap for the whole season, and I've lost more than that this year so far. Now at the moment, I've actually, between maple and walnut, I've collected over 1,000 gallons of sap so far. 15% of the sap I've gotten in hasn't been used, but I have gotten quite a bit in so far this year, so it hasn't been a total loss because of those little mishaps. Now, with the black walnut sap, I mentioned earlier in the video that it didn't seem like I was getting as much, and that has definitely been the case. I've only been getting around 20% as much sap from the walnuts as from the maples. Or another way to put that is the maples produce 5 times as much sap as the walnuts have been. So at the moment, the sap, well, it's not going today because it's too cold, but the sap is still flowing. It still is smelling fine, but I think we're probably getting close to the end of the season, because I do know that last year the last sap I collected was February 20th, which we're very fast approaching that. And the reason I quit collecting was in part because it was really slowing down, but also in part because the sap was getting a really funky smell to it. I think it was what's called buddy sap, and it's caused when the trees start to bud out a little bit, and it gives a very off flavor to the sap. I'm being attacked by a cat. You wanna come up here? Come here. Come on. Ugh. Okay. And so that was why I ended it last year, was because it was just getting really weird tasting. And I think part of that's also because I'm tapping red maples, and I think they bud out a little bit earlier than the sugar maples do. So that kind of plays a part into it as well. But for the time being, still getting the sap in. I'm doing a really good sniff test of all of it that comes in, just to make sure that it's going to be good and I'm not going to contaminate the rest of my syrup. Once I do hit the end of the season, I am planning, I know I said I was going to do this last year and never did it, but I am definitely planning on doing a kind of an end of the season recap as far as how many gallons, as far as how many gallons of sap I got and how many gallons of finished syrup, and break it down between both the maple and the walnut. I've also been keeping track of more specifically how much I've gotten from each group. So I've got the walnuts behind the mill house, I've got the walnuts over in the turkey field, maples in the turkey field, and then maples behind the farmhouse. I've been keeping track of, like, individually how much I've gotten from each one of those locations. So kind of do a comparison and all the details on that, which some of you are definitely not going to find interesting, but if there's anyone out there that's kind of curious I'll be sharing all that info here probably not too far in the future. So I think that is all that I wanted to put in today's video. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.